Assalamualaikum and greeting to all panel and lecturer. My name is Nurul Shahira binti Pazin. Supervised under SR Kolim Shahri, we will be presenting my academic project entitled The Impact of COVID-19 Pandemic Towards Rental of Residential Property in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. First and foremost, the outline of this presentation, we will start with the research background, problem statement, research aim and objective, research methodology, scope and limitation, data analysis, finding and discussion, and last, the achievement of the research and conclusion. For the background to the research, the first case of coronavirus illness was discovered in Wuhan, China in November 2019, and the World Health Organization proclaimed it a worldwide pandemic. Measures taken by the MCO to stop spread of SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, includes ban on overseas travel and gathering as well as the shutdown of enterprise, industry, government buildings and educational facilities. The virus spread has an impact on real estate markets according to Kekel et al. 2020. COVID-19, according to Beniwal and Oyaloyo 2020, has caused delay in the project. The market is glutted, which means projects are in limited supply, impacting the demand, and therefore pricing and rental rates are down to some extent. The tale also expresses the potential for increasing interest as well as the pandemic repercussion for the industry, such as decreased workspace, more rent defaults, a move to less expensive residence, and the subsequent vacancy in luxury houses connected with decline in the need of youth office space and the use of internet commerce to offset closure in both share workplace. According to Beniwal 2020, the rental value in Mumbai have decreased. Expensive houses have been seen a 30 to 40% drop in price. Mumbai residents move out of their apartment more frequently than those in other cities. According to Costing 2020, many governments advise expatriate and foreign citizens to return to their home nation as additional countries adopt lockdown circumstances. Some, like as Australia, they impose immediate border restriction for non-residents and travel cancellation, leaving many immigrants overseas unable to return and causing several of them to abandon their house. So, in this study, the researcher would like to focus on the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on rentals because based on reviews of previous article where there are several countries affected by the rental market. So there are also studies where home sales performance is better than rent. The government took several initiatives in response to the impact that was taking place. Therefore, the researcher will analyze the impact that occurred in Malaysia due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Next, identify Malaysia's measurement to the impact. For the problem statement, there are two main sectors that affected from the pandemic. First, economic, which is according to Sharif 2020, the economic impact of COVID-19 continues to increase with increased job losses, wage cuts and declining consumer confidence. Next, according to the Bank Negara Malaysia 2020, the unemployment rate in Malaysia is expected to rise to 4.55% on year 2020. Labour market conditions are generally expected to be weak this year. For the rental sector, according to Sharif 2020, rent has traditionally had to be paid in the first month and more tenants become late to clear their payments. Therefore, most landlords who must repay their bank loans will find it difficult to do so if tenants continue to defer rent payment. According to survey made by Baker et al. 2020, the rental industry in Australia has been severely impacted. Many renting households have been forced into unstable or even unemployed work, and many are now struggling to meet their rent payment. Next, according to Henry Tan 2020, who is an individual Airbnb operator, MCO has been a source of severe difficulty, but as the COVID-19 pandemic started to spread through Malaysia in February, Airbnb's reservation drastically decreased and March saw no income at all. In April 2020, the majority of 80% of homestay operators did not get direct booking, or only 25% compared before, who receive customer every week. In this difficult situation, they are also benefit when some homestay operators change their strategy to long-term rental, that is, change the homestay to a rental house to survive. So, the aim of this study is to determine the impact of COVID-19 pandemic towards rental for residential property in Malaysia. Well, the objective of this study is first to identify the impact and the measurement of COVID-19 pandemic towards rental property. Second, to analyze the impact of COVID-19 pandemic towards rental property in Malaysia. And third is to identify the measurement on impact of COVID-19 pandemic towards rental property in Malaysia. For the research methodology, as preliminary of the research, the researcher does some literature review and found some problem that economic downturn had impact to the rental sector. From that, researcher found the research question and the objective of the study is created. To achieve the goals, quantitative method can be ideal in this study. The researcher will use questionnaire to get the answer from the respondent as the primary data for this research. Meanwhile, the second data will use as the references. The data was analyzed using descriptive and cross-tabulation analysis. The expected outcome from this study is the rental of residential property in Kuala Lumpur is affected by the pandemic. Next, we move to the scope and limitation. The scope of this research is to focus on residential buildings who manage as rental property that significantly impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. Specifically, this study will conduct in Kuala Lumpur area. The estimate of number of respondents is 105 persons. Then, the questionnaire will be distributed through online form to determine the experience of respondents regarding impact of pandemic towards rental. Meanwhile, the limitation of this study is to identify the real data since the pandemic have not been end yet. Generally, the pandemic have been erupted from November 2019 and still lingers till 2021. The researcher will be faced problem to get the real data if the pandemic has been not end yet. Hence, the research graph is the location area of the study and the updated data on 2021 or 2022, which is differently with another research. For data analysis, there are three sections in the questionnaire. For the first section, demographic information is occurred and mostly the respondents are from the gender female within 20 to 30 years old who race Malay and single marital status. They are mostly designed as executive with salary RM2000 and below and was status ownership as tenant who rent in flat or apartment. Most of the respondents also had a long-term rental period and their rental price is within RM800 to RM2000. In the section 2 of the questionnaire, the impact of COVID-19 pandemic towards rental property was identified. The result is MCO was affecting the tenant and landlord, also affecting the employment and indirectly affect the rental of real estate. MCO also affect the monthly income to the respondent and has caused the tenant to be late in paying their rent. Next, study found that MCO was causes the tenant to apply for reduction in rental price from the landlord. MCO that occur in almost 2 years can affect the duration of rental contract for whom had a rental agreement in their tenancy. After all payment problem due to MCO, the landlord has problem in paying loan and bills. It is directly affecting the landlord's income from rent. Then, due to restriction of lockdown, MCO also make the rental houses was occupied by the tenant. Other than that, from the unemployment during MCO, income issue was affecting the rental payment and the survey found the respondents were aware of relief program that conducted by the government. Most of them also applying the program to use the fund for the rent payment. Lastly, they agreed that the program handled are helpful for the receiver. For the depth analysis of the impact, the researcher was used cross-tabulation analysis to cross with the demographic information. For the V1, MCO affect tenant and landlord, the majority agree from the tenant. For the V2, MCO affect employment and indirectly affect the real estate, the majority agree from 20 to 30 years old. For the V3, MCO affect monthly income, especially in real estate rental. The majority agree from designation as executive. For the V4, income issue affect rental payment. The majority agree from income group RM2000 and below. For the V5, MCO has caused tenant to be late in paying rent. The majority agree from group of tenant. For the V6, MCO causes the tenants to apply for a reduction in rental price from the landlord. The majority agree from group that having rental price within RM801 to RM2000. For the V7, MCO has resulted in rent exemption for tenants has majority agreed from group that having rental price within RM801 to RM2000. For the V8, V9, V10, V11 and V12, the rental houses that has contract, MCO can affect the during of rental contract. The landlord has problem in paying loan and bills. The landlord's income from rental affected during the MCO. Rental house occupied during the MCO and all the 5 variables, the majority agree from the group of tenant. For the V13 and V14, awareness of the respondent towards a relief program and the application of the relief program, the majority agreed from the 20 to 30 years old. For the V15, the use of assistance fund for rent payments, the majority agreed from group tenants. And for the V16, the assistant groups are very helpful for receiver. The majority agreed from 20 to 30 years old. Move forward on finding and discussion. For section 3 in the questionnaire, the respondent is required to give a Likert scale from 1 to 5 to show the measurement on the impact of COVID-19 pandemic towards rental property. The rank of the measurement from the impact was analyzed and are ranked by using the mean score. First in the rank was variable 3 with a mean score 4.07. Next is variable 1 with a mean score 3.83, and the third in the rank was variable 4 with a mean score 3.65. And the variable 5 and the variable 6 are in the bottom of the rank with a mean score 2.47 and 2.34. For finding and discussion part, this study found the impact of COVID-19 pandemic was first, rental value, change of rental term, pandemic affecting the rental payment, and unoccupied rental house. Meanwhile, the measurement on the impact of COVID-19 pandemic is alternative programs such as moratorium by bank, zakat distribution, financial relief by EPF and SOCSO, then a private rental control and the converting rental terms of tenancy. As research achievement in relating with the objective, the first objective of this study is to identify the impact and the measurement of COVID-19 pandemic towards rental property. The impact and measurement are found from the literature review from the previous study, report and news. There are numerous impact and measurement of the impact that happened during the COVID-19 pandemic in the study, which was conducted through a review of the literature. The researcher looked at the measurement made and the consequence that happened in several international nations. The impact that had been found from the literature in chapter 2 of the study is rental value is dropped, the changes of rental term, the issues in rental payment, and unoccupied rental house. For the second objective of this study is to analyze the impact of COVID-19 pandemic towards rental property in Malaysia. This objective is achieved by getting feedback from the respondent using questionnaire. 105 respondents, the most of whom are renters, and rental homeowners were polled to determine the impact that happened in Malaysia based on the impact specific from Objective 1. The data was analyzed using descriptive and cross-tabulation analysis to define high impact towards rental in Malaysia during COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, several landlord and tenant who own rental properties have been impacted across the MCO. Their monthly income has been impacted by the almost 2 years long Malaysian Movement Control Order, which has caused instability in their work. This has also brought up some worries over respondents' ability to pay their rent as tenants. Additionally, this has brought up the problem of late rent payment, and almost half of the respondents also report receive a rent exemption of the payment. And the length of the MCO had an impact on the leasing contract for the respondents who are obligated by the agreement. In addition, from the cross-tab analysis, the most affected respondent from the COVID-19 pandemic relating residential rental was from the group who are as a tenant, aged within 20 to 30 years old, having monthly income in range RM2,000 and below. So this group of respondents are the most affected regarding employment and directly affected their rental performance. And the last objective is to identify the measurement on impact of COVID-19 pandemic towards rental property in Malaysia. The measurement from the impact was analyzed from the questionnaire, and the researchers are ranked the measurement on the impact using mean score. The respondent determined that the rental price drop in and around Kuala Lumpur had the greatest influence during the pandemic period. When tenants are unable to make a payment, a large relief fund can help. The rental price index was also impacted by the drop in rent price, the sales of rental homes, and eviction from the rental homes owing to unpaid rental payment in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia are among the less frequent during the pandemic. To summarize the study, many Malaysians have lost their employment and other means of income because of Malaysia's economic sectors have been severely injured. It has indirectly impact on house renting. The government has thus established several alternative schemes to boost the economy of the nation. In doing so, the government is hoping that the money is flowing into the nation would help it perform effectively. As the significance of the study, from finding of this study, it will give value to the policymaker. It may help the policymaker to generate or manage the right of tenant and landlord equally without bias during any crisis. The policy may protect them in future. Next, this research may contribute to the organization or parties who manage rental property. They can aware and take several strategies to overcome any problem happen currently or in future. Lastly, this research may contribute to professional bodies such as a real estate agent, valuer, journalists, and others. They will concern the impact of this pandemic on their assessment.